Hello everyone, I'm Larry Hamilton. Welcome to my YouTube painting channel. Thank you for watching. We have another live broadcast going on today, and I notice we have several international visitors tuning in, so welcome everyone. Today we're going to be doing an oil painting, as you probably already know, and the picture's been up on the broadcast window for quite a few minutes, maybe 15 minutes. The links to the reference files, the original photo, the value map, and the sketch are below this video you're watching, so they're all links to my website, and you can pull down these images and sketch them and ping along with me if you've caught up to that. If not, I'll do it for you. So I want to go over to my computer now and just spend about 2 or 3 minutes showing you what I did, how I created the value map, and I'll be right back to start the painting. Hold on. Okay, here I am at my computer now, and I wanted to take you through a little bit of what I did to get this image created. So I'll show you the original photo here, and this is what we started with. It's a scene from Peggy's Cove in Nova Scotia. A very beautiful area. I've painted several paintings from that area. I found this one and I thought that it would make a good painting. It's a little bit too wide. It wasn't quite fit for the 11 by 14 canvas that I use, so as usual, I cropped it. I didn't take too much off, took a little bit off of the left side primarily, and a little bit off of the top, I think. Basically, it was pretty close to 11 by 14 pixel count. So the way I do that is I look at the pixel count of the image, and I find a pixel count that when I divide it, the height by or the width by the height, I get 1.27, which is the same aspect ratio as dividing 14 by 11. So when you're ready to try to change the aspect ratio and get a painting to fit on your canvas, take the width and the length of your canvas, divide it, and whatever that number is, cut your pixel count on the original photo down to that, and you will have a nice photo that fits your canvas, which I always put a grid over. I have a 4 by 5 grid here, which fits over my canvas very nicely. It fits 11 by 14 canvas very well, and that's what I use to sort of do the sketch from. And as well, I do a value map, which I won't go into the details of how I do it here, but I try to get this painting into 3 values, a light value, a medium value, and a dark value. And so I put it into Photoshop, and I put a layer on top of the image, and over that layer I sort of sketch in the rough areas that are darkest, or that I want to be darkest, and the ones I want to be mid-value, and the light areas as well. So you see here now I have the 3 values in this map. I call it a value map, and it helps me to try to remember where the darkest darks go and where the lightest lights are going to go. The finished painting doesn't always match this exactly, but it's pretty close. At least I try to make it close. And here's the sketch. The dominant feature in this painting is going to be these 2 boats that are on the land. They've been pulled up off of the beach area, and they're waiting to go back out when the tide comes in, I assume. There's a lot of rocky area. I'm going to put some water in this painting that's over there by the left, which wasn't in the original photo. And I think that's primarily all I need to tell you about this. And so with that said, I will head back over to my easel, and we will start this painting. Hold on. Okay, I'm back. Hope the sound is good on this. If it's not, please type in the chat window. I have a computer up here by my easel, and I can check it periodically for your questions or for anything you might want to ask me. And also, if you have a problem with hearing something or questioning something I'm saying, you can be, I will certainly try to check it many times during the class and try to answer you online here while we're painting. Okay, so I want to take you through my paints and my brushes. You've seen the palette on the screen before, and as I was changing from computer to easel. And I have here my setup, my typical oil painting setup. I have a little plate here that has two things on it. I have liquid white, which is the Bob Ross liquid white, and it makes the painting dry slower. I also have a little bit of Winsor & Newton liquid here, which helps the paint dry faster. So I kind of trade those off depending on what I'm doing and how fast I want the paint to dry. I have an assortment of brushes here. I don't need all these brushes. You won't need all these brushes, but I have an assortment of filberts here from Trekell.com, and I have them from a number 16 all the way down to a 2. I like to make those. Those are good for tops of bushes, sometimes the tops of trees. I have an assortment of flats here. These are all synthetic mongoose brushes called Legion 9100. These are all also from Trekell.com. And again, I won't need all these brushes. Sometimes I only end up using 2 or 3 brushes in a whole painting. But I have them available and I can use them if I need them. Then I have my 3 leftover tools from my Bob Ross following days. I have a script liner here, a very small script liner. I use that for a lot of fine details and twigs and that sort of thing. I have a fan brush, which I really like in some areas. It's great for certain kinds of snow scenes, that sort of thing. And I have this painting knife. I may try to use this painting knife on that boat as we try to put this rough paint texture on the top of that one boat that's facing us, the one that's closest in the, not closest, but the one that's the big focal point of the scene. All right, let me go quickly around my oil paints here. I'm not using any blues today. I got titanium white here. My 2 blues are missing. I have midnight black, Van Dyke brown, dark sienna, alizarin crimson, sap green, cadmium yellow, yellow ochre, Indian yellow, and bright red. Again, those are Bob Ross oil paints. I have one Winsor & Newton color called ultramarine violet, which I will use for my blues, and that, a mixture of whites and that and my blacks. I'll get as much blue color or gray color in this painting as I need. So with that said, I think we're ready to start. I want to get my camera set up so I can zoom in on the image here so you can see it. I want to get it aligned so you can see most of the painting and very little of me. I don't need to be in the painting or in the video. And let me get it set just about right here. I want to make sure you see the top and the bottom. And with that said, I think we are ready to go. I got all my cameras running. I got my broadcast software running, and thank you for letting me know the sound is good, Renate. Thank you. So we're going to start here on the top of this painting with a little bit of my liquid white and a little bit of, I'm going to put a little color in the sky. The photograph actually had this painting, this photograph was just white, just pure white in the sky, and I don't really like that. I want to make it have a little bit of color in it, so I'm going to start up here with a little bit of this violet and white with a little bit of the liquid to make it flow on the paper. When I put or on the canvas, when I put this paint together, put a little bit of liquid in it, it really loosens it up and it covers a lot of the canvas a lot faster. And so when I'm trying to make a lot of coverage here, make it go faster, make it cover more, the liquid will do it. It also leaves a little bit of a shine on it, which sometimes I don't like. So I sometimes take that out. I actually have a filbert brush here, which I probably should have picked up a flat brush, because I've got these flat areas on top of these houses. So I'm going to switch brushes now to a flat brush. This is a number 14 Trekell flat, and it just helps me put this top on this. It gives me a sharper edge, is what I want to say, than what I would get if I were just using what I was getting when I was using the filbert there. The filbert has a nice rounded edge for organic shapes and things like that. It works well, but it may not work as well for areas where you want flat, where you have to match up against a flat surface like a roof or something like that. I can still leave that in here and make sure I have, there we go. put this, I'm going to cover that flag up, leave a little bit of that flag showing so I know where it is. Come up here and hit that. Okay, I'm adding a little bit of liquid white. That helps give me some more movement of this paint on this canvas. Have a little bit of a chimney there I want to leave room for. Probably wouldn't have to leave room for it. It just helps me remember to that I have a chimney there and don't forget it. So that's kind of why I'm painting around some things. Change the color a little bit, add a little more lavender to it. I have actually a light pole here that I'm going to try to save and paint around. It has a light on the end of it, and so we'll do that. These nice flat brushes help give me a nice, very nice edge on some of these things. So you don't have to paint the way I'm painting. You don't have to follow me exactly. You don't have to use these paints or brushes. But the whole idea is to just show you how I put a painting together, how I create the composition, how I get it on canvas, and usually do a painting like this in a couple hours or less, depending on how many objects are in the painting. I have quite a few objects in this painting to paint around. I've got 3 houses, I've got a lot of rocks, I've got a lot of the sea coast. I got these 2 boats sitting down in the foreground, so I'm going to have to work on this to get it done in 2 hours maybe. But again, you never know how fast this is going to go until you get started. Actually, there's another little building back here. I don't know if you can see it, but there's another roof of a building right here that I'm going to paint around. So as you can see, I've got most of my sky in now. I'm going to put a little bit of this midnight black here in the brush and come back and put a few clouds in this painting. Get around this part of this building here, down there, over there. Okay, I'm just trying to leave enough of that light pole there so I remember where it is. I don't forget it. That's really the main difference I have with trying to paint the way I paint and the way Bob Ross did it. Bob Ross would take this liquid white and he'd just cover the whole canvas, and then he would remember where things were. But I also found out in doing some research that he did his paintings 2 or 3 times, and he always had a full copy of the painting he was doing sitting down beside the camera beside him, so that he could always refer to the original painting while he was doing his videos. And so he always had the ability to remember and where things are. I do have the photograph here, but sometimes I change the photograph so that it doesn't represent, or I change the composition on the canvas so it doesn't represent the photo exactly. So anyway, I'm just trying to put in a few things in the sky to leave it, give it some texture and let it look like there's something happening up there. This sky in this photograph was like totally white, had no clouds, had no blue sky. Not a great photo from a sky standpoint, but we're going to put a few clouds there. It's not really I don't want to put so many in that it looks like it's a threatening day. I just want to have some abstract objects up here in the sky, so it kind of looks like we have something going on. There's a few clouds floating by, which kind of justifies the whiteness of the sky. And I added this this ultraviolet, which gives me a little bit of a purplish haze. Put it down here toward the horizon, and when you do that, it helps give a little bit of distance. It helps make the sky look like it goes back, it recedes a little bit, so that it's actually atmospheric perspective that we're putting in, and we're making that color help say it. So I'll put a few things that maybe look like there's a few white clouds floating around here, some spots. So it looks like there's something going on in that sky. I don't like just a plain white surface up there. All right, I think that's enough for the sky. think I'm going to stop on it and start working on these buildings. So I'm painting top to bottom, back to front. Back to front means I'm painting the farthest thing back in this photograph and working my way toward the foreground, so that I'm painting over things that I've put on the canvas, but I'm not trying to paint front to back or leave spaces. I do use that negative painting scenario where I paint around things, which is very helpful, so that I don't just cover them up and not know where they are or what they look like. All right, this building here, let's start with this #1 house here. We've got a couple of roofs here that I'm going to use my midnight black, a little bit of my Van Dyke. Over here we've got a little roof that's actually gray in the photograph, but I'm going to make it sort of brownish color here. Still using this number 14 flat. Put it in here like this. And have it back there. That's just the roof of that little building. The one up here on this building, it's actually sort of has a greenish tint. It's probably hard for you to see that. It's kind of even hard for me to see it, but I'm going to make it more of this black with a little bit of this violet in it, ultraviolet. So the photograph really becomes the reference for this painting. You don't have to duplicate that photograph if you don't want to. Trying to leave a sharp edge here where the eave of that building is. I lightened it up, added a little bit of white in there, added some other colors to give it a little bit more texture, but it stands out from the background. If it doesn't stand out from the background, people aren't going to see it. They're not going to know what it is. If it looks the same value or same color as the sky, people are going to be confused. So we'll just go through here and hit these roofs. I'll come back with a smaller brush. I may end up using a smaller brush for a lot of this because some of these objects are pretty small. And this one over here on the right, I'm able to put a little bit of green in it, just see what it looks like over there. Pick up some sap green and sort of green this black down and see what happens over here. Probably not going to be able to tell it. Trying to get it as flat as possible. And there we go, that's that roof. So I've got a couple chimneys. I think I'll put maybe a chimney on each of those. They ought to have some sort of a chimney. This green I've got in my brush here, I'm going to just kind of throw it right in here. I'm going to need it in there somewhere around these rocks. So I don't want to just wash it out of my brush and forget it. So I'm going to throw it in there. There's some rocks around that area. So it looks really dark because I've got that black, midnight black, in there. There's some other areas that are very dark. Let me see. Around here, around this, down in here, it's very dark. So I might as well put some of that dark in while I got that in my brush. There's areas that have dark. See, this rock comes down to here. There's some dark undergrowth here, and there's a few places up here that have some dark green on them. So I'm just gonna kind of throw that in and get those out of the way while I got my brush all dirty with this dark color. I do this sometimes in watercolor paintings this way because it lets me put paint across the paper and it lets it dry at various places. I'm not worried about this paper drying here today, or this canvas drying, so it's not a big issue for me, but I do want to try to hit these spots that I know are my darkest, some of my darkest darks. So midnight black, sap green, maybe a little brown in there in some areas. Sometimes the brown will show up, sometimes the green will show up, sometimes the black will show up. So I'm just sort of scrubbing this in, putting a little layer in here of some dark that flows across. There's a walkway that comes down this way and it gets covered by bushes. So I think that's, maybe there's just one other spot here in the left side. I'm going to throw in a couple of dark bushes floating down this way. There's some on one of these rocks here, if I can figure out which rock it is. It's like right in here, I believe. This will help me go back to the photograph and reorient myself when I trying to figure out what rock I'm painting or what part of the grass I'm painting. If I figure this out now, I won't have to question where I am unless I get it wrong. Then I will question where I am. Okay. UK, Christy, canvas start. Okay, welcome. Got a very international audience again today. Appreciate you all tuning in and following me. It's a lot of fun. I have a lot of fun doing these demonstrations and lessons. All right, so that's probably enough with this big brush for a while. I'm going to come back now and put some more work on these buildings. I'm going to use a little bit smaller brush. Probably still use a flat brush just because I can get a sharp angle, a sharp edge with that flat brush. Sometimes I've been known to actually use an old watercolor brush that has really sharp edges. I'm not going to do that today. I am going to get like a number 8 here, and we'll start working on the sides of this building. This is kind of funny because the sun is trying to figure out where the sun's coming from. It's sort of coming from the back almost. You see shadows under the boat here. You see shadows over here where I've got these dark green. So the sun is kind of coming down from the top left, but it's more behind us, so let's see what we do with these little grays here. These grays have to be darker than the sky, or you have to put some sort of a border between your building face and the sky you've painted. So I'm going to throw this in. It may need to be a little darker than that. So it would have a little bit of shade on it. Get some more on here. Okay, there we go. Put a little more dark in here. Make those eaves good and dark if I can. Put some more of that dark under here. It's not very dark right now, so more black, maybe get in some Van Dyke brown in there. Darken it down. There's a little shadow on that eave, a little shadow over here. Better. Okay, something like that's what I'm looking for. It's a little hard for you to see that, I'm pretty sure. I'm going to get a little bit smaller brush. I'm going to come back and put the front on this building that's going to be a little bit of a black gray, has some lighter color in it. In here, yeah, there we go. That's a pretty good color. I lightened it up so that you can see it, but it's still darker than the background. I paint around these windows because I want those windows to sort of stand out, and so I'm getting some vertical brush strokes in here that help identify the boards in this part of the house. There we go, like that. Now see, I'm right on top of this, so I can really see it pretty well, and I know that's probably hard for some of you to see that. But I'm basically trying to give that a nice, even coloring over here. I've got a little bit more of that lighter color over here, I think. I got a little too dark right there. If I want to highlight that, this area right here, I'm going to make this corner very sharp. And the reason for that is oh, how did I sketch it on? Question. Okay, let me explain that. I take the sketch and put it on tracing paper, actually, and then my canvas has covered with gray gesso. I forgot to tell you that, but that's all my canvases usually have gray gesso on them. And then I use a transfer paper made by Saral, S-A-R-A-L. I get a white transfer paper, and I put the transfer paper on the canvas, put my sketch tracing on top of that transfer paper, and then I use a dark marker and basically just go over the sketch. And when I get done, I have a white sketch made from the transfer paper that I use. That Saral transfer paper comes in white, it comes in black or graphite, it comes in yellow and red, different colors you can get, but I found that this is a good way. I like to have my canvas gray. It's a mid-tone gray. If you can see my old beat up value bar over here, it's about the mid-tone value in this bar over here on the right. So if I need a value that's darker than mid-value, I know it has to be darker than the canvas. If it has to be lighter, I know it has to be lighter than the canvas. So it helps a lot with that. I'm going to put this front of this building down here. May have trouble seeing that, but when I put my grasses and stuff below that, that'll pop that out. And I have this road that's sort of the same shade. It's going to be a little bit lighter, but there's this road that kind of comes along here, gravel type road that comes this way and comes down. And so I'm using white and a little bit of my browns, picked up a few of my browns to kind of tone it down a little bit, but I got a lot of white in there. I don't want to make this road with really sharp, it's not like a paved road that's got sharp edges on it. I want it to be, it's going to be covered with grass and all that sort of stuff, so I want to make it a little bit rougher like that, add in some browns. I'm going to come back and put some grass over this and put some other things in that road, but that's pretty much the road there. Now actually it comes down and wraps around. Here's the rest of that road, so I don't want to forget it. I'm going to put some of that paint right in here so it reminds me that that's the rest of that road. Over here, yeah. And I'll be covering that with some grasses and some rocks from above. But yeah, this is just a gravel road that comes down here to where these boats are tied up, and it's not really a exciting beach. There's a lot of rocks in this area, so I don't think Peggy's Cove has much of a beach area anywhere, but they have a lot of fishing boats in and out of this cove, and they're a lot of fun to sort of paint those. So if you are looking for some images to paint, you can kind of always Google Peggy's Cove, Nova Scotia. That will show you a lot of photos and images of Peggy's Cove. You can get some ideas. Now just be careful of using a photo that you don't have a copyright to use, particularly if you plan to sell it. I need to give a copyright warning. These photos I use, I have purchased that are copyright free. The photographer sold them to me with the right to reproduce them. So I'm not violating any copyright laws here by using this photograph for my painting. But if you demonstrate your paintings or want to sell your paintings, you either need to give the photographer credit or not use his photo. And it's hard to get credit sometimes from photos, but I'll put a couple of windows up here. I'm still thinking about it. There's a few windows in here that need to go in. That's a little too bright maybe, but there's a door back here. Used to be more white around it. It's actually a white painted door right in here. And there's a window that's got some blue in it, some gray in it. And there's a whole fence around here that's like a deck or something around this house. So I'm gonna, it's actually black or dark in the photograph, and I'm gonna lighten it up because I need to have the contrast of the between the building and this fencing. I'm using a small brush again. I picked up now a number 4, and I'm using that to put this decking railing in. I guess that's what you want to call it. Right in here. I'm just putting in some railing posts. Come back and put some gray in there. I've got the pure canvas showing through it there right now, but it doesn't have paint on it, so I need to put some paint on that, and I will in a few minutes here if I don't forget. There's a couple little windows. There's another little window down here. In here I've got some windows that have some dark showing up. I'm kind of painting this part of this building, almost getting it totally done pretty much. I can come back and put a few details in there maybe, but basically that's going to be just about done. That this here is way too white. It's drawing your eye up there. So look for that in your paintings. If you get something that's too white or too obvious, you want to go back there and gray it down a little bit. Change the color, change the value. Don't leave it so bold that it. I can come back with just a little bit of this building color and just tone it down. All right, I've got a light pole there, and I've got a light that belong on this building, but I think that's going to pretty much hold it for now. There are some areas of dark here that are under this deck. They're just about the width of my brush. So let's just pop those in. They're sort of underneath this decking back there. Come back and get some more whites and finish off this bottom railing here. Just that. Put a little something between. I just want to have some canvas. I want this canvas covered. I want paint on it. I don't want it to just be gray, even though from a distance you probably couldn't even tell that there was no paint on that canvas right there and right there. Over here and here. But as close as I am, I see that, and I don't want to leave that around, so I'm going to put a little bit of a shadow on this side of the left side of the door right here. I'm going to pretty well have this door finished off. Okay, that looks like a railing going around that house, a little deck like they can use. I got that too dark. Should be the color of that building behind it if I were doing it right. There, that's a little better. Okay, now, so this is done. I may come back with a fine brush and do some more work there. Let's get on to this next building over here on the right and put some a little bit of a face on this. I'm using this small brush again. This is number 4 flat. Actually, it's not a flat, it's a bright. I don't know if you can tell the difference, but a flat has shorter bristles, a bright has longer bristles, but they have a flat tip on them. So a bright and a flat are very similar, it's just that the bright has longer bristles. So remember that the next time somebody gives you a quiz. Over here, let's put a, see how gray that is? That just matches the background, matches the sky. You can't even see it. It's either got to be lighter or darker, and I'm going to make it a little darker so that it does stand out a little bit, that it is in the shade as well. So I want that over here. This area is too white right there. I turn around and keep looking back at my monitor. I have a monitor here behind me that I can look at, and it shows me what you're supposed to be seeing, so I can see it larger than just looking at this small detail here in my face. I'm just going to put a few dark shadows down here. Helps that a little bit. Even put a little shadow under here maybe. All right. I'm not washing my brushes out too much. I am using a paper towel that I keep wiping them out on, but it keeps the it prevents me from getting a lot of thinner in my brush if I don't take them back to the thinner and wash them out. So there's a couple of windows over here. I'll just see if I can get a couple of abstract marks in there. Looks like that. It's got a chimney on top. I'm going to use my dark sienna and pop a little chimney on top here, like that. Okay. This other one over here, I think he needs a chimney as well. I didn't see one in the photograph, but I'm going to put a little chimney back here, offset, not in the middle, like that. While I got this little thin brush, I think I'm going to put this light pole in right here. Comes all the way down like that, and has a top on it like that. Okay, I think I'll consider that done. All right, over here, I got that in. There is a pole over here by this guy's house. I think it's probably a flagpole that doesn't have a flag on it. So let's just put that little thing in right now. Just like that. All right, I'm over to this other building now, the one on the right. I need a whitish kind of color here for the front of this. It's not real white, but it's that. We'll make it just a little darker as we go along here, back into these rocks and that sort of thing. All right. Does have a bit of a white, I don't know if this is a gutter or what this is, but there is something that's lighter here. Throw that on, put in a little bit of a white edge over here maybe, if I can make it stand out. Okay, there. This is not too descriptive over there. It's kind of bland. But I'm going to put another little chimney on this one over here. It has a bit of a chimney like right in here somewhere. That has a gray flagpole. It actually has a flag on this one over here. That's what I was leaving room for over here a while ago. Okay, come back and lighten that up a little bit. It's almost too dark. It should be a little lighter than that. I want it to kind of blend and look a little bit fuzzy. Peggy's Cove, I think this must be, I don't know if it's, well, it's not part of Canada. I guess it's a separate entity. But they have some sort of a red and white flag hanging up here. Might be a Canadian flag, but it didn't quite look like it. It had white in it, that sort of stuff. There was some other flag hanging down here somewhere that had some stuff in it. There's really like two flags on this thing. There's another. That's pretty good. I'm going to stop with that. I don't want to keep messing with it. I'll make it worse. I'll just try to lighten this up a little bit so it's not quite so obvious. And even with this one, it's a little too dark. Just put a little bit of a light, soft glaze over it. Let it sort of get, sort of blend with the background a little bit. Take your brush and sort of. It's getting too wide now. See, I'm going to mess it up if I keep messing with it. All right, let's stop on those. That's the background. I think I want to put just a little bit of a window or something right here. All right, I'm getting too detailed now. It's what happens when you get these small brushes. A lot of artists tell you to work with big brushes as long as you can. Don't get the small brushes too soon. But I got the small brushes, see? So there's an example of what happens. You get down to working with small details and you forget about the bigger picture. So I've been going here for 38 minutes and I've got about less than a third of this done. So let's get moving. I'm going to get some cad yellow and my sap green. I'm going to start in here and start moving in some nice green color bushes. I'm going to have that yellow on the top if I can. Coming down here, there's some shadow coming down. There's rocks underneath. Let's put it up here all the way to this building. Over here we've got, that's rock in there, but there's grass and bushes right in here. In there, like that. So I'm just being very abstract. I'm not trying to paint anything specific. I'm just trying to get a nice feeling of bright, some sunshine. It's kind of hitting these things, giving me some light grassy areas. Sort of make this building stand out a little bit. That's rock there. This is all greenery that comes down into here like that. We got some more grasses down in this area. Just going to put in some marks to tell me that, remind me of the greenery that's in that area. And up on the top of this hill back here on the right side, in here we got some really light stuff going on. It's probably almost too light for my painting, but let's put it in and see what it looks like on the camera. Really bright, isn't it? I don't have that, well, that same brightness actually can be over here. So I'll echo it on this side and we'll have some bushes and some shrubs and stuff going on over here, like that. So it helps balance out, add some harmony to the painting. And till these things all work their way down to the rock down here below. And these will be using some grays, and so these things come in here, they kind of come down to this road, this walkway, if you will, start encroaching on the gravel out here. So let's see, I want to make that lighter and this darker in here. So I'm just getting as much as I can out of this brush. And keep these a lot of green in here. I don't want to make all these greens look alike, so I'm trying to change the color up, add some different values, different colors. Green can get to be very boring if you're not careful. So let's make sure we have some abstract shapes in here. You hear me talk about abstract shapes periodically. That's very important when you're painting any kind of painting, is to try not to duplicate a lot of shapes. Try to make them as abstract as you possibly can, and keep them from getting boring. It's the boring factor that you create when you, if I just made a bunch of little circular things here that were just identical with each other, it would start getting very boring in a hurry. And most professional artists you won't see do that. You'll see them mix up their strokes, mix up their colors, mix up their values, mix up everything you can think of to make the scene interesting. You don't want boring stuff in your composition. And nothing makes it more boring than clones. So if I made 3 bushes over here that were identical, I'll fix those. If I made 3 little bushes there, that might be what's actually in the painting or in the photograph. Could very well be. A lot of bushes are identical. When people plant landscaping, they make identical bushes, but they do not make a great painting. They tend to get boring, and if I just made this all one green color, it would be very, very boring. And if I put this in a museum or in a show right next to somebody else's painting, they would be often looking at the next painting before they wouldn't spend much time on my painting if I make it too boring. So I try to keep from making things boring if I can think of it, and if I have enough knowledge and time to keep them from looking boring. So you look at all those shapes in there, and you start seeing a lot of differences. I mean, they're just brush strokes. They're just different kinds of brush strokes, different colors. Brush strokes are going different ways, and it makes an interesting set of greenery right there. Okay, let's keep going here. I'm painting around some things here that you may not know what they are, but they're actually like a little fence that goes along here, and I'm going to put that fence in, but I'm painting around it right now. Right here, down this way. So there's a lot of bushes here, a lot of. Put a little dark brown in here for this. I'm still using a brush that's probably too small, but I like the way this bright is feeling in my hand right now, and I like the effects I'm getting with it right here in these areas. It's small enough I can paint around some things like these fence posts that are kind of laying there, and yet it's big enough that I can make some broad strokes with it if I want. So when you paint this, you can make this as abstract or less abstract if you want, but I would warn you that the more abstract shapes you can kind of fit in here, the better this painting will look. And the more you can change the color, or you can change the value, or both, the more pleasing it's going to look to people. So I just changed that color. I just added some white and I lightened that up right there. So I'm getting a mixture of lights and darks. And what do you see? You see an interesting abstract shape here. And if you take these darks, you have interesting abstract shapes. Abstract shapes are what sell paintings. So this had a lot of green in it, a lot more than I would normally like to put in a painting, but I'm trying to make it look like a field of a lot of stuff going on over here that would be natural. This would be sort of the way say the springtime that these grasses would start coming back, these shrubs, these bushes, whatever they are, they would start coming back to life, and they just start popping out everywhere. This is not a mowed grass field where they actually mow the grass and keep it trimmed off. It's just whatever grows on the side of this hill below these rocks. So some of this is embedded in these rocks, as you can see up above, and some is just growing in the grass or in the ground. So I got rid of my clones down here, if you noticed. Put some darks on the bottom. Run it down here to this walkway. And I'm actually deviating from the photograph right now. The walkway had a lot of bright yellows over here in this area. So, you know, you don't have to stick to the colors of the photograph if you don't want to. But I'm just making a lot of abstract shapes here if I can focus on the abstractness. Getting a bit of canvas covered fairly quickly. Got a bunch of bushes over here. I'm going to just sort of scrub this in, come back and put a few things over the top of it after a bit. There's a bunch of things growing out of the ground here. So let's just kind of pop that in, change the color, change the value, change the tone, add some yellow, add some ochre. If you add some red to your greens, what happens? Question of the day. If I add a little red to my green, if I add some alizarin to my green, what happens to my green? If you're looking at the palette, you're seeing it. It turns brownish. That's called graying down your greens. You want to gray down your color. Anything on the color wheel that sits opposite of each other, red and green, yellow and purple, if they're across from each other on the color wheel, when you add those colors together, you will actually start graying down the other color. And if you gray them down to 50% of each color, that will make a perfect gray. So it's a little known. It's not little known. It's something that a lot of artists really know and understand. If you look at a color wheel and take any two colors that are across from each other on a color wheel, and you add those to start blending them together, you will find that they actually turn brown if you put green and red together. Now there I've got way too much alizarin, but if I want to gray it down, I just come back and put in some green over the top of that, and it will gray it down. Come back now and put some green on that. Since I'm mixing on the canvas, I'm not mixing in my palette right now. I do a lot of that. I do a lot of mixing on the canvas. So over here is going to be rocks and cliffs. There's a little bit of grass somewhere over here. About right in here, there's some grass. Put that in so I know it's there. And I'll paint my rocks around it. And in there, I got the grass going on up here. Okay, so it's coming along here pretty nicely. Stop and take a look, see if we got everything we want in there so far. I'm painting top to bottom, back to front. The risk of getting too small a brush again, I want to put those fence posts in. These little fence posts that go in here, I think I might even get a smaller brush. I'm going to go get a number, was this a number 4? Had a 6. All right, let's get some colors in this brush. This is a number 4 bright. And I'm going to make these probably darker than they should be. But they don't really stand out in the photograph very well. So I kind of want to put across here like this, down, over, change the color, lighten it up. There we go. Let's add a little more white to it maybe. White on top, dark on the bottom. Should have the highlight on the left if I have a highlight. Should be on the left side because the sun is coming from that side. So you can see those. Got to be careful of the value because they're the value of what's behind them. It may distort and make it so you can't see them if you're not careful here. Okay, we got a nice little thing going on. Okay, that one in the back is probably too dark. So let's lighten him up just a bit. Pull some more white out on him. There. Okay, that should come down just a little bit more. This is not a perfect fence by any means. It's got, it's probably been there for a long time, and it's got some things that are not perfect about it, but that's kind of what we want there. Okay, let me put a little bit of this color over here, paint out of my brush. Okay. So you can see that it's kind of a walk path. There's a little bit of a fence there. Doesn't have to be a perfect fence. I want this to be a bit abstract and a bit impressionistic. I like to do impressionistic work if I can. Make this a little bit lighter right in there. A bit too light, but let's put a... Okay. All right, that makes that stand out enough. I think we can see it pretty well. Got some more green going on over here around this walkway. It comes here. I think I got something in my brush there that put a dark mark on that path, but that's okay. We'll come back and fix it. Ochre, yellow. These bushes have a sort of a changing color to them, so I'm just going to merge them together, put in some, mix this around so that it looks like, now look at the brush strokes. What am I doing with the brush strokes? I'm pulling up like this. What's that tell you when you look at the painting? It tells you that's a little bit of a little higher area maybe, that there's the ground kind of goes up, and it also makes you think the path is going down. So I'm going to get into some of the darks here that fall underneath this, along this cliff. This is a cliff that drops down. The water level's like clear down to here. I'm going to put some water in there, and then we're going to work on these boats. So let's keep moving here. getting down to the top of the boat now. Bigger brush, bigger brush. I should finish off this path, and any other details I need back in here. I've got some areas that have some dark bushes or grassiness that goes here. I need to finish that off. Some other areas are just sort of dotted across here. They're not very script. They're just sort of, just kind of fill that in so it's not all one color over there. These kind of come down. Get this thing going here. We've been going about an hour, haven't we? Yeah, making pretty good progress. So we're about half done. We've been going an hour. That's pretty good. So this is all the sort of grasses that kind of go against this boat. I've taken a couple things out of this photograph. I don't know if you noticed that, but there was a bench setting here, and looked like some other little monuments of some kind that were on the ground here. I don't know if those are a tribute to someone who was lost at sea or what they were, but I just didn't feel like putting those in, so I left them out. That's what your artistic license is all for, if you can leave things out like that. Okay, I'm just going to put in a few things that look like there's some grasses growing over there. Put in a few more things. This is picking up some of those browns. Up here there's a bunch of grasses, or not grasses, but I guess they're like dead branches that haven't got anything on them yet. So I'm just going to throw some of those over here like this. Try to blend them into the ground so we don't have hard edges down there. Okay, so it gives me another little area that looks like I've got something coming down. It's kind of pointing down this way. The thing I wanted to do with this walkway, I want to kind of lost my color now, but I'm going to get some more white back and kind of finish this off here. It's it is a gravel road, but has some brown tint to it. So let's just throw these in here. It's getting lighter and whiter, and using a bigger brush just because I happen to have it. It was handy. Okay, pick up a little bit of my gray here. I want to get some gray. Again, if you have any other questions, folks, please type them in the chat window and I'll see if I can answer them. I think I'm following the chat. I'm going to check my computer here very quickly. Hold on 1 second. Okay, I'm up, caught up with everybody. Here we got some gray. It's not gray. It's I think there's some sort of a rock or something here. I'm going to make it look like there's a little rock and some gray going out in here. There we go, like that. Okay, this red up here is probably looks fine on the video. It's bothering me a little bit up close, but I'm going to leave it because I think it looks nice. It looks pretty good on the monitor back here behind me. So let's just sort of blend this together. Okay, now we've got these rocks back in here. I'm going to get this a bigger brush and start going after those rocks, see if we can get those nailed down. And I'm going to use my midnight black and white. I'm not going to, I don't have any blue, so if I want any blue, I'm going to have to kind of get it out of this violet. But back here we've got rocks that are coming down this way. Need a little more white. So again, these brush strokes are going to tell you which way this rock is falling. Combination of light and darks. Okay, again, that's almost the same color as the canvas, so it's a mid-value gray. So I either have to make it lighter or darker so that it stands out, or you won't know what I'm doing. Some grays over here. So I'm just kind of painting down into these bushes over here to kind of give it some background that I didn't have in when I put those in. So this is a nice example or test of creating abstract shapes, because that's all I'm trying to do right there, is make a lot of different abstract shapes and hook them together so that they appear to you like they're rocks with rounded surfaces or angular surfaces. I've heard some artists say that rocks should always be angular, never make them rounded. But in areas like this, I see rounded rocks a lot. Areas on the northwest coast, see a lot of rocks that they've probably been beat down by weather for decades, centuries, I don't know. And if that's the case, you end up with rounded rocks. Even I paint areas out on the west coast, out west, Montana areas, and when you get some sort of a rock that's had water rushing down a stream for many years, it's going to have rounded corners. It's not going to be all straight and angular. Even though an artist would say, what says rock? Well, it's an angle, something angular. Got that a little too bright in there. Tone it down a little bit. Over here we've got another rock. So I'm just trying to hit these rocks. I got my hands in my paint. I'm getting it all over myself here. But let's see if we can get these painted in. That rock is about the same color and value as the house behind it. So it's hard for you to tell that that's the rock and the house is back there. So let's put something dark in there, like down here, maybe here. Okay, now I'm showing you that this is a rock that's falling straight down. More darks. So I can put highlights on top and shadows on the bottom. I'm going to get some dark over here. Okay. Need some dark for the bottom. There, like that. Okay, so that's most of those rocks in there. I could come back and restate some of that, those grasses on top to kind of make them look like they go overlap the rocks, which is always a good thing to try to do, so it looks like it's pulled together, so we don't end up having rocks that aren't connected to the landscape or the grass. These look like they're pretty well overlapped. Here though, you don't want to have, I guess the best advice I can give you is don't have these hard edges where they look like they're just glued on or something like that. So go back and touch up with some of this other colors. Pull some colors out. Like over here where I put that in and painted behind it. Go back and put some of that back in. It just helps tie that part of the painting together, so it says those are really setting behind. You want to make sure these rocks are sitting behind this grassy area here. All right, let's stop with that. Put maybe a little bit darker areas along here. Get another abstract shape in there. All right, good. Let's stop on that. We still have some grays over here on this left side. Let's start with those rocks and get those in. And in this case, we've got the rocks that are kind of coming out in front of the grass. In this case, so let's pull down some. Again, the strokes that you see, the strokes that I make with this brush, are telling the viewer what's the angle of this rock. So if I put in the right kind of brush strokes, I'll be able to tell you that this rock is angular and it's sitting underneath this grass here. Over there, maybe there's a lot of dark grass around it. So let's put in something like that. How's that looking? Okay. So again, we need dark lines of some sort, cracks or crevices that tell us how these rocks are being, what they look like. I see a few browns in there. I'm going to pull back a few of my browns. Put some rocks in here. Didn't get the color I wanted. This to go like that. And over here I want these to start coming down like this. So the brush strokes tells it all, folks. The brush stroke tells you this is a rock face that's vertical. These are slanted and angled into the water. The little dark marks that you make will tell the viewer how those rocks are stacked up. So they're coming down here, we're getting closer to the water. The water's edge is down here. So let's just put this in like this and get moving here. There we go. So you can see the rocks. Now they're going to have to get darker as we move down. Get down here toward the water, we get a lot of dark rocks in here. I'm going to just throw a few little rounded things in here. Some browns. In here. Underneath these rocks, because I'm pretty sure the tide is out in this case, so the fact that these rocks are all being exposed tells me the tide is out. There's a bunch of mossy-like stuff that's sort of yellow ochre that's setting in here. It sort of kind of lands when the tide goes out. So I'm going to throw a little bit of that color in, a little bit of this ochre color in here. Wrap around the back of this boat here with that, if I can. Then this is going to be water down here in this area. All water all the way down to this other boat. So I'm going to leave that and see if I can get a little bit more of that finished off. Darker, darker. Top of this boat goes right here. So let's paint the top of that boat so you can see the Okay, there we go. All right, I've deliberately reduced the number of rocks that are actually in this photograph. And the reason is because, another good tip, if you try to paint every rock that's in a seascape or a water's edge, you'll drive the viewer crazy. I mean, there must be dozens of rocks in here. And besides taking 2 hours just to paint the rocks, it's too much for the viewer to take in. You can't expect the viewer to take in everything you're painting when you take a scene like this that's probably, I don't know, 100 yards across, something like that. And you try to condense it down into 14 inches. You can't paint everything there, or you will. It actually gets very hard for the viewer to digest. Put a little highlight on that rock. Put a few highlights on some others back here. All right, I think that's enough there for that. This will come there, and I'll put some more water. Water goes down here. Interesting, I didn't have any blues. So what am I going to do for water? Well, I'm going to have to make the water the color of the sky or the color of the rocks around it. Water has no color. It takes on whatever it's around. So I'm going to use some of this violet that I have, lighten it up, and sort of put it in here. There's a big old rock. I'm going to leave a rock there. It's a bunch of dark areas. So just adding this, a little bit of ultraviolet here will starts to tell you that this is water, but because it's sort of standing water, its tide is out, it's not moving, it's not rushing in or rushing out. What else can tell you this is water? Another question for the day. How do you make this look more like water? Good question. I'll show you. Take some of the color of the rocks. There's rocks above it, right? Take a little color of the rocks in your brush, and you do this. Those vertical brush strokes tell the viewer that this is water that's still and being reflected. It's really about all it takes. You can take a dried brush or a clean brush and sort of go across it to give it a little bit of a blending effect, like that, which helps distort the reflection a little bit. And then, if you remember old Bob Ross, he used to always put a little bit of some sort of a shimmering something across that reflection like that. And no more than that. Simple little horizontal stroke, vertical strokes, tells you that's water that's standing right there. I hope that's what it tells you. That's my plan anyway. Okay, how are we doing? Been going an hour and 14 minutes. Well, I think we got time to finish this off without too much difficulty. I see a spot that I need to put some grasses in here, and a little bit of grassiness back there in this walkway. Like that. I think we're okay down here. So we have this stuff happening here. All right, I think we're ready to start on this boat now. For real. One of the two boats. We got two boats we're working on. I'm thinking, as I look at this, this looks awfully dark up here. It's almost too dark. It's pulling my eye up there, and I don't want my eye to be pulled up there. So let's just feather that out a little bit, blend it together so that it's not quite so stark and dark. And those grasses are growing up over, and they're not really hard-edged up there. So, all right. This boat. Okay, let's see. There's a lot of light red, white. Let's see what size brush. For this edge, for this rim back there, I'm going to try to do it pretty much in white or a grade white or this rim right here. There's a the edge of that top edge of this boat. We've got some things here that kind of stick up. Might be places for oars or places to hold oars, maybe. I don't know. Doesn't appear these boats have have motors on them, so they must be rowboats of some kind. Let's go back in here and feed this all the way back here. Actually, we've got an interesting change. At this point, we're painting the back side of the boat, and when we come up here, all of a sudden we're on the front side of the boat, right here. Okay. Trying to get rid of that green. I'm painting over that green and it's picking up in my brush. So let's come back and put another layer over it. I'm making that too wide right now because I'm going to put the reddish color underneath it, but I wanted to get this point over here made. Notice I got some grasses on the front of this boat that needs to be filled in. On the right side over here. That really needs to be darker and grayer than that. So let's put another strip down it like that. You can add a little brown. Okay. Up here on this area, we've got to pull in. Now we're looking for this reddish, sort of a rusty color. I'll try to see if I can create that with my cad red and maybe a little bit of my dark sienna. Cad red, dark sienna, and a little bit of white. I can get about whatever color I need off that. If you see that in the palette here, I'm mixing that dark sienna, cad red, and white turns it sort of pinkish. Probably not orange enough now that I look at it. I may want to add a little of my Indian yellow or something to make it a little oranger maybe. Let's see. Put it up there and see what it looks like. Oh, that's a rusty reddish color. So A little more white, a little more red, a little more dark sienna. Change the color up a little bit. I'm trying to keep that top edge as clean as I can, and I'll work on the bottom edge with my next color down. Next color below it, which will be some sort of off-white of some kind. And I've got grays, darker grays, a lighter color in here. So that's pretty much the color that I want in here. Close. Got a lot of these other colors in here are pulling down browns and reds and other things like that. Now you see, if I take this brush and pull it very fast, can you see the gray canvas showing through? That's called a dry brush effect. And what it means is you've taken some of the paint, you've got so much paint in the brush, but when you pull it fast over the canvas doesn't take it all at once. It leaves little marks. And it's a good way to show this kind of weathered look on these boats. We got grasses and stuff down here, but let me, because it's not a recently perfectly painted boat. It's pretty old. So I'm just going to keep hitting this with these colors and pulling fast, leaving some of the gray show through. It's a quick way of making this thing look weathered. It's too, needs to be a little lighter, I think, maybe even a little redder. Pick up some of this other red in here and see if we can get a little bit of a different color. I'm making it more pink and less. So we can always go in and paint over it if we need to, but I'm just trying to get it changing the color just enough to give me this really weathered look. I'm going to come back now with some of my white over that, and we'll put another layer over it, and we'll try to get the rest of that weathered look, because this is sort of not, this is not completing the whole look here. This is just sort of putting on one coat, the sort of the base coat, if you will. Put a little more orange in this, a little more yellow. And I can also pull these strokes like this, which helps show some roundedness. There's not a lot of roundedness up here in the front. It's pretty flat. But back here, it starts, the roundedness of the boat starts showing. So I'm trying to mimic that effect. And I keep mixing my colors here, so I'm actually, because I'm doing it this way, I'm actually getting different colors as I come down this boat, the side of this boat, which is okay because this is a weather affected boat. And these areas where I have gray canvas showing, I want to come back and put in some white over it. This whitish color, I guess, that we have here. So we're just filling this thing in almost like an undercoat, if you will. And so the rest of this is going to be filled in with this sort of white color. And we'll work it, we can work it back and forth until we get it the way we want it. All right. I may try. Oh wait, let's see, I want to get this area inside the hall here. I got a white strip on top again here. It's supposed to be wider than that. Here. A white strip here like that, and then inside the on the deck here it's pretty much the same color right in here. Has a little bit of a gray tone to it, but not much. I just need enough to make it stand out. So let's put a little bit of a darker gray in there. I have another very small brush. I have a number 2 brush now. So there's that, and then this area right above it is a little bit darker. It's actually a darker gray. This is all in shadow in here. So I want to make it like it's in shadow, like that, and over here the same way. All right, now that's starting to look the way I want it to. Carl, thank you, from Bavaria, Landsberg, Bavaria, Germany. Wow, thank you, Carl. Welcome. Thanks for the comment. I want a little bit of lighter white up here on top because I want to make sure this edge stands out up here. It's actually getting light on it, and it should stand out and make the difference. Okay. What else have I got? I got a little bit of a thing over here. I don't know for sure what it is, but I'll just throw it in there. There's a couple of things over here. All right, I think we've got that canvas pretty well covered back there. Now, what are we going to do with the rest of this boat? And we got this other boat here that's even got a lot more white on it. I don't know if I want to do that now. Maybe I do. This guy here is just a... Take some white and add just a very little amount of tone to it. I mean, in the photograph, this boat is as white as the sky is white. So I'm not crazy about that. But it's upside down. And so we're looking at the bottom of it. It goes paint it in fast and take a look at it. When I scrub this white paint over the canvas, actually the canvas starts showing through again, and end up with sort of grayed down white. little grade down. I don't want that. Let's see, it goes all the way down. Actually, there's a, that's right, when I sketched this, I'd forgotten that this was the bottom of the boat here. And then what's down below is a different color. It's a sort of a grayish, I don't know what it is. Oh, man, it's got a funny looking gray to it. I'll pick up a little bit of this rust color that I have and just sort of carry it this way. Down here, this part of the boat is a, man, I don't know what that is. It's sort of a violet with some green in it or something. It's got, I think it's got some right along here. Probably from being in the water, it's got, so I'm getting some sap green in my violet and my white and sort of giving it a, I don't know what color you call that, but it's a grayed down color that is the side of the boat. Yeah, so it comes down here like this. Come on, get me some paint here. I'm running out of paint. I don't know why, I got plenty of paint in this palette. Okay, there we go. Get a lot of this stuff out of this brush. I'm going to gray it down. It's got to be. There you go. That's what I'm trying to get, this color that looks like a side of the boat. Goes all the way down to the bottom of the canvas here. It's almost. Yeah, let's get some more paint on here. More paint, there we go. Okay, there. All right, that looks like it might be the side of the boat here. It's got some rough textures going on. It's even got a little bit of this reddish color on here, if I notice from the, it may have had a coat of this red paint on it at one point down here as well. So it's sort of blended together. It's got some green from the water. And it's a very sharp edge too, which is the thing I haven't shown you here. This is there, that's a little better. It's not quite perfect, but shouldn't be any curves in that. It should be nice and straight. Straight as I can make it there, folks. All right, now I've got a couple other marks here that represent some shadows. It starts up here, goes something like that. And there's another one that starts over here and goes like that. And then this edge is really dark. Again, I can tell you how this side of this boat goes, how I'm making my brush strokes go the way the side of this boat goes. So that tells you this is a vertical surface and that's a horizontal surface. See the difference? It's a neat thing to remember when you're trying to paint something. There's probably a ridge down here on the bottom, but I'm going to leave it at that because we're going to come back and put a little bit of grasses in here. Got more grasses to put in here, got some whites to put on this boat, and we will be done, folks. We've been going for 1 hour and 35 approximately on this painting. Our total video is longer than that because I have the work that I take to introduce my video and my paints and brushes. So I'm just picking up some of my blacks, getting some different gray colors in this brush, and just doing the same thing here, pulling down into and across this other paint. Getting a little liquid white. The liquid white helps this paint go on much easier when you're painting over paint that's already there. So again, I'm pulling fast, trying to mimic that idea of having a rough surface on this side of the boat, and you do that by pulling your brush very quickly. Turn it over because I'm picking up that reddish color that's in there, and have to wipe it out periodically as well. Okay, it's starting to look a little bit the way I want it to. If I keep painting over this, I'll just paint out all those rough marks, and it will look like a freshly painted boat, which I don't want it to look like. But by using this brush with some fast pulls, I can sort of mimic that rough texture on there. Since this is a class for learning, I'm going to get out my palette knife, and I'm going to see if I can put a little bit of this paint on here using this palette knife that, if you've ever seen Bob Ross, he used to use this kind of palette knife, and he would get a roll of paint on the edge of that knife like that, and then he would take it and pull it down. And I'm going to see if that'll work here. If it won't, I'll just have to paint it out. But it adds some very impasto type effects to this that you can't really get with the brush. Stand back and look at that for a minute and see how it looks. It adds an interesting texture to the side of that boat. So let's do a little more here. Maybe back over here we need some. And you can go back and use the other color as well. You don't have to just use the white. You can use this other color here and come back and hit some places where you want to paint over that. Okay, so it's looking pretty rough and beat up, I guess. That's the idea. Like it's missed a few paint jobs in its life. So this is a nice trick that you need a palette knife that's got a wide blade like this. Normal palette knives that you find don't have that kind of blade, and you can't quite use them that way. So that's a trick that I still like to use from the Bob Ross painting days. Okay, folks, we're zeroing in on this thing now. We're going to finish it up fairly quickly. I've got this, all this area down here needs, excuse me, I'm having trouble with my voice. Sorry, folks. Needs grasses. So I'm just going to mix up some colors here that look like they're colors that are close to what's in the painting. It's a little bright, but I'm going to pop it in here and come back in and put in some darks inside it. It's a little bit different greens than I have up above, slightly, but I can certainly change those and pull some other colors in there. Ochres. So the bottom of this boat you can't really see. It's kind of hidden behind all these grasses down here. And so I'm going to see if I can hit some of this out here on the edge. That should be a sharp edge there because you have the edge of the boat it's there. Come back, put in some darks, pick up some browns and blacks, throw them in here, get at some darker areas. Again, I'm thinking abstract shapes. I'm not trying to paint every little blade of grass and everything, because this is not where I want you to look. I don't want you to be looking over here. So I want to keep it abstractly simple. Right? So the whole idea is to try to make the viewer's eye go where you want it to. So I'm just throwing in paints here that help me do that. And it's looking close. Chrissy, thank you for the thumbs up. Glad you like it. I got some more darks. There's some really darks in here. I got too bright a yellow. Picked up a bunch of yellow there. Around here, pick up some darks that go in here like this. There. Needs to be darker. Okay, so I've got a lot of this covered. I think it's be a good time to pull out my script liner and get some really fine, I don't know, ochre-like colors on here. Whites, get some thinner and start putting in a few things that look like they're I don't know, they're just new growth. Got some stuff on them. Kind of come up here like that. It'll help maybe tie this to the painting. I actually need to put some of this up in the other areas, but back and get some of this ochre. And again, these things look like they're sticking on top of the canvas, right? So how do we fix that? We take a brush and we just come in and kind of disturb the bottom of them. Got a bunch of paint in this brush I didn't even pay attention to. So you can't really see the bottom. They're just sort of masked by that. Let me come back. I want to see, there's a few more things I can do with this brush as a final parting gift here. Get me some dark, some browns. Back here, I kind of put those in with a bigger brush, but maybe I need a few thinner ones. I need more thinner with my paint here. There we go. Got a nice thin wash of paint on this brush. There's some stuff there. We'll throw in a few things here like that. I think. I don't know, there might be a few little things we could throw in here to help tie some of this together. Not necessarily in the photograph, but it's stuff that might be growing out here somewhere. Really, that a little too light, but I think I'm going to stop fussing around with it and see what that looks like. This little, the only thing I see, it needs a little, this little thing here needs some shadow on it because it's a it's a protrusion that's basically off the top of this boat that didn't look like it was exact. It's either a post behind the boat or it's part of the boat. I don't know which. I can't really tell. But I think I may say enough is enough and find me a good, interesting place to put my name, and we'll just put it in here. Get more. Bit more on that letter there. Okay, got my name on the boat. How about that? Okay, folks, hope you like this. I'm going to take my palette off and center this up into the screen and back out and say, hope you give this a try. This has been a fun painting for me. I tried some new techniques I haven't used for quite a while, and to have a boat in Peggy's Cove, Nova Scotia. Hope you like it. Hope you give it a try. It's a lot of fun to do this watercolors. I'm sorry, these oil paintings, and I may try this one in watercolor. That's what I was thinking about because I like to paint Peggy's Cove so often. So without much else, I want to say thanks for watching. Check out my Facebook page, check out my website, get the photos and the sketch and the value map off my website. I've got links down below this video. And so I want to thank all of you around the world for watching. I really appreciate you tuning in every month. If you follow my watercolor paintings, I will not have a class next month. Normally I have on the fourth Wednesday, I have a watercolor class. I will be missing that class this month, so I will try to get another video created and put out there, but I just won't be a live broadcast next Wednesday. So if you're planning to tune into that, just take that off your calendar, and I'll see you next month for another oil painting. So I think that's all I want to say. So until I see you again, this is Larry Hamilton saying so long for now. Goodbye.